My boyfriend, Ben, wants to break up with me. He says he's found a shortcut in life and plans to be a live-in son-in-law. Me, actually, my dad owns a lot of buildings. The plazas around are ours, and our hotel chains are all over the country. If you're set on being a son-in-law, I can make that happen. Want to reconsider? Ben held my hand and firmly said, "Sorry, but Rose and I are truly in love." Fine, I'll let him go. I turned and jumped into the arms of a rich, handsome guy, laughing out loud. My boyfriend of 3 years suddenly broke up with me. Ben, sorry Susan, my mom has a terminal illness. I don't want to drag you down, so let's break up. Right after he said that, Ben cut all contact with me. Called him, the number wasn't working. Went to his company, he had resigned. His public housing, empty. I was heartbroken. Breaking up was like some tragic romance show, where the couple is madly in love, but ultimately separated by money. I never got to tell Ben, to drag me down with money, you'll need another lifetime. Actually, my family's worth billions. We're super rich. Ben came from a single-parent family and wasn't well off. To protect his pride, I kept a low profile around him. After college, I bought a place smaller than my family's restroom. Told him I was renting it. Now that we broke up, I don't want to live there. Packed my bags and moved to my villa in another place that same day. I had it renovated 6 months ago, planning to gift it to Ben for his birthday this year. Didn't expect that as soon as I entered the neighborhood, I'd spot Ben. Ben was with a chubby woman, about 3 times his size, and she smiled so hard her eyes disappeared. She looked very cheerful. Beside them, Ben's mom was in a floral dress, glowing, not at all like she was terminally ill. I was confused, then heard Ben's mom happily saying, "Rose, did your dad really agree? Once Ben marries in, he'll give us the villa." The chubby woman nodded vigorously, speaking in a hoarse voice. "Yep. My dad said it himself. Why would it be fake? Auntie, I'm carrying Ben's son. Would I lie to you?" Looking at her belly, I suddenly felt a pang. Ben went this far for his mom's treatment. He's such a proud person. I approached Ben. "You know, Ben, my dad owns a ton of buildings and the plazas around are ours. Our hotel chains are nationwide. If you want to be a son-in-law, I can do that. Still want to reconsider me?" Ben was shocked to see me there, but quickly held the chubby woman's hand. "Sorry Susan, it's my fault, but Rose and I are truly in love." Next to us, Ben's mom sneered at me. "Susan, Rose's dad is in construction, and they've got at least 50 million in savings. What do you have? Only 5 grand salary a month. What's left after rent? How can you even compare to Rose? Keep your distance from Ben. Don't get in the way of his pursuit of happiness." Finally, it hit me. "Auntie, you don't have a terminal illness." "Terminal what? You're the one who's got it." I nodded and looked at Ben. "So you said your mom was dying, but turns out you were cheating. You've even got a kid." I'm one of those people who's slow on the uptake sometimes. After parting from Ben's group, I went home, took a shower, changed into fresh pajamas, lay in bed, and only then did I start getting angry. I cursed Ben and his mom for a while, then decisively shared my ordeal with Betty. Through the screen, Betty sounded like she was about to explode. How could Ben be such a jerk? Pretend his mom's dying so you won't find out he cheated. And his mom's so vain. "Susan, you can't just let this slide." Fired up by Betty, my own anger flared up too. "Yeah, I can't just let this go. If I lost to Rose over other reasons, I'd get it. But losing to money? No way." Betty sent over a mischievous GIF. "Susan, I've got a plan. Ben wants to be a son-in-law. I've got a cousin named Logan. He's decent looking. I'll ask him to act as your son-in-law for a bit. If Ben finds out you're rich, he'll be furious. Who wouldn't want to teach a cheating jerk a lesson?" I agreed immediately with both hands raised. An hour later, I got a reply from Betty. "Done. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., City Center Cafe, table 36. Logan will be wearing a black suit." The next day, after resigning from my job, I headed to the cafe. As soon as I walked in, I spotted the guy at table 36. I went straight over. "Hi, Logan." When the guy looked up, I was startled. Betty really downplayed things. If her cousin only looks decent, then there's no decent left in the world. His cool eyes, perfect features, every refined descriptive could apply to him. Total romance novel male lead, especially when he looks at me with those deep eyes. Feels like I could fall right in. I gave myself a little smack on the forehead, cleared my head, then smiled. "Logan, Betty told you all about my situation, right?" The man raised an eyebrow. Oh my, even just that little move was so attractive. I took his as a yes. Then I grinned. "Logan, playing my family's son-in-law isn't hard. You just need to stand next to me and look handsome. I'll provide all the rich gear. How about it?" The man looked at me quietly for a while before slowly nodding. "Sounds good." Once we left the cafe, I took him to a car dealer and impulsively bought a Maybach. Since they didn't have any in stock, it'd be a few days before delivery. But I also took him to a custom tailoring shop Ben and I frequented before we started dating. The clothes he wore didn't have any brand logos, but the fabric and cut were refined, clearly bespoke. But he's gonna play my family's son-in-law. I gotta show some appreciation, right? Plus, I wanted a few custom pieces for myself. I hadn't been here in 3 years. The tailor shop had new staff, but when they saw me, the manager greeted me instantly. Though, her gaze was on the man. Before she could speak, the man pointed at me. She's the one paying today. I looked at the man, thinking he had great potential to be a live-in son-in-law. Of course, I don't mind him spending my money. Bring out your pattern books. I'll order a few outfits. I looked at the man. Logan, pick 3 sets for yourself. Money's not an issue. When the manager brought the pattern books, Logan handed them to me, his face wearing a subtle smile that almost glittered for a second. Just 1 set. You choose for me. I customized 10 outfits for myself and 3 for Logan all in one go. Then I took a cab and dropped him off at his company's doorstep. Before leaving, I glanced at the company logo. L Group. Yeah, I know, it's one of the top 20 publicly traded companies globally. Logan's alright, a promising young man. After getting home, I saw the message from Betty. Sorry, Susan, no need to show up. My cousin said something came up last minute, so he won't be there. Don't wait around. I replied with a meme. No worries, everything's settled. Once I pick up the car, I'm gonna go mess with Ben. So, I lounged around at home for 3 days, sleeping after eating and eating after sleeping. Finally, on the 4th day, the dealership called for me to pick up my car. As soon as I stepped out, I heard that all too familiar voice. Ben, auntie, my car's dope, right? My dad spent over 20 million on it. Great. Bumped into Ben and Rose again. Rose was showing off in front of a black Maybach, just exuding that nouveau riche vibe. It's nowhere near the class of a true tycoon. And Ben and his mom, they've got that deer in headlights look. Ben's mom even rubbed the Maybach emblem. Rose, did you tell your dad to get Ben a car when you two get married? Don't worry, I did. Dad said anything under 10 million, Ben can choose. I quietly passed by, but being good-looking always draws attention. Susan, why are you always hovering around? Ben's mom faced me, her nostrils flaring. Susan, Ben dumped you. Get the hint. If you keep bothering him, I'll call the cops. I rolled my eyes, big time. Like I'd lower my standards for a cheating ex. Ben's mom was obviously not buying it. Susan, who knows? You're shameless enough. I made it clear before that your 5 grand salary is way under my Ben standards. My Ben salary is 4 times that each month, but you clung on. Now, knowing Ben is about to become a bridegroom, who knows what tricks you're up to? I called security. This lady here is verbally attacking me. I have the right as a resident to have her removed. 2 huge guys, both at least 6 feet, grabbed Ben's mom on either side, her tree trunk legs dangling. What are you doing? My Rose lives here too. My Ben is family. You can't kick me out. Rose, say something. Rose seemed ready for a standoff, but went over to her mom and gently persuaded, Mom, Dad believes in environment. The baby's not 3 months yet, so we shouldn't announce Ben as the groom. Don't upset Dad. Ben's mom instantly mellowed. Got it, got it. She schmoozed the guards. Hey fellas, let me down. I'll leave on my own. Tugging Ben along, she exited, giving me a death glare like she'd be back. Wow, talk about groveling. Can't wait to see her face when she learns I'm loaded. Soon, I picked up my car, and the salesman drove me back. Sitting shotgun in the Maybach, I got a call from an unknown number. Wouldn't you know, it was Ben. What's up? Ben hesitated, then sighed. Susan, I know I did you wrong, but you shouldn't degrade yourself like this, right? What's that supposed to mean? Susan, tell me honestly. Did you move into a villa? Yeah. Susan, you're young, got a great future. Don't be like those women who seek sugar daddies for vain luxury. Knowing that breaks my heart. I chuckled, annoyed. You never really know how low some guys can go till you break up with them. Ben, you chasing money is okay, but I can't. How double standard can you be? And stop with the faux concern, you cheating jerk. Go enjoy your rose. Hung up on his sorry ass and blocked him, fuming as I looked out the window. The salesman chimed in, Miss Susan, what guy's crazy enough to? I sighed. What can I say? I was just too broke. The salesman wisely shut his mouth, though his gaze seemed a bit sad. Before reaching home, I spotted a familiar face. Logan was heading to Rose's Maybach, opening the door and sitting inside. Stunned, I got out and tapped on his window, seeing his equally surprised face. You live here? Yeah. My expression was complex. Logan, I thought you worked at L Group. Didn't expect you'd be a driver. He paused before admitting, yeah. I furrowed my brow. That Rose doesn't deserve you as a driver. Logan, quit and be my personal driver. Whatever she pays, I'll double it. 2,000. You took such little pay. Times were tough. All right. I waved grandly. I'll pay 50 times that. To show sincerity, I pulled out my phone. Add me. I'll transfer it now. I'm lazy, so let's skip the contracts. His head portrait was a plain black image. Just a simple L for the name. I'm Susan. What's your name again? Logan. He sent it right over. Nice name. Thanks. And I wired him 10 grand right then. It was soon time to reclaim some pride with Logan. Betty, our unremarkable gossip maven, found out Ben planned to propose to Rose this weekend. Big show, inviting college buddies for proof of love. That day, Logan suited up in his custom-made, came by at 5:30. We rolled out in my newly plated Maybach, arriving precisely at Golden World. When I got there, Ben was proposing to Rose, kneeling with a ring. Rose, I love you. I'll be good to you forever. Marry me. Rose sobbed, extending her hand. He fiddled with the ring. Couldn't slip it onto her ring finger. Settled for her pinky. I chuckled, watching his awkward face. As they embraced, the crowd cheered on cue. I snickered, dragging Logan inside. Having been Ben's girlfriend for 3 years, these folks were mutual friends. They stopped cold seeing me with another guy. Ben caught on quickly, disbelief written all over. And Rose's face, priceless, her eyes glued to Logan. Oh boy, didn't see your own driver ending up as someone else's boy toy, did ya? I decisively took the only center seat on the scene, with white roses laid out in front of me. Looks like they were prepared by Ben for Rose. Soon enough, Ben and Rose walked over. Susan, what are you doing here? I smiled, linking arms with Logan. My boyfriend's in a bad mood today, so I came to cheer him up. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Ben, you've lost the privilege to spend money here. I pointed at myself, because, well, this mall belongs to my family. Ben immediately gave me that helpless yet somewhat indulgent look. Susan, stop messing around. Back when we were together, that look would make me cave instantly. But now, it just makes me want to puke. I directly called the manager. 5 minutes later, the manager stood before me, all respectful. Miss Susan, what can I do for you? I pointed at Ben. Show him and Rose out. Ben's expression changed, and he stepped forward to argue, but Rose tugged his sleeve and whispered something. Ben quickly pursed his lips. Susan, is it really worth it to put yourself through this just to get back at me? I pulled Logan to my side, yanked his tie down to make him bend over. Way better looking and cooler than you. Even every pore on his body is worth more. With that, I gave him a peck on the cheek. Ben, can you leave now? Watching Ben walking away with Rose in his arms, I suddenly felt a bit underwhelmed. Too weak, not even qualified to be an opponent. I called my dad's private jet to take me on a trip abroad. When I got back home, the weather seemed to have changed. Rose was kneeling beside Logan's leg, crying hysterically. As she wept, she wailed, Mr. Logan, please don't fire my dad. If my mom finds out, she'll kill me. Logan took a couple steps back in what seemed like distaste. Ben and his mom stood off to the side, looking incredibly embarrassed. My brain slowly processed, and I was stunned. So, Rose, you're not some rich heiress. Logan gave me a slight nod, his expression oddly tense. Or was it just my imagination? Just a driver's daughter. I couldn't help but twitch my lips, then turned to Ben and laughed out loud. So you're aiming to be a live-in son-in-law, and the promise of a luxury car gift upon marriage all fell through. I laughed so hard, I cried. Logan softly exhaled beside me, some relief appearing on his face. Yeah, that's not happening. I was practically rolling with laughter, and quickly pulled out my phone to record a video to send to Betty. See, bad people do get what's coming to them. Ben and his mom wanted to marry up, and guess what? They got duped. Betty replied instantly. So who's the handsome guy by the Maybach? Introduce us. Isn't he your cousin? If my cause were this good looking, I'd have probably bullied him for fun as a kid. I looked at Logan, feeling a bit awkward. So who are you, exactly? The owner of this car. Blushing with embarrassment, I covered my face. Here I was, mistaking a rich guy for a driver. Sorry, my bad. I sincerely apologized. It's fine. I felt even more shy. So, can you return that 10 grand to me? Logan transferred the money right away. Staring at his handsome face, I felt a bit embarrassed. Mistook him for someone else, then demanded my money back right in front of him. Out of courtesy, I asked, would you like to come in for tea? Dragging my luggage, I figured Logan would politely decline. Who would have thought he'd actually agree? Sure. I opened the door to my family's villa. We didn't even get inside when Ben's mom loudly complained. Ben, even though Rose lied about her background, she's still a decent girl. Look at Susan. She moved on just after breaking up with you, and now she's shamelessly inviting other men over. So Ben's mom, missing out on a wealthy daughter-in-law, decided to vent on me, huh? I dropped my luggage on the floor and called the butler. In no time, the butler and maids came out. Welcome back, Miss Susan. Miss Susan, you must be tired from your travels. The maid picked up my luggage and took it inside. Ben and his mom's expressions got even more entertaining. I had no idea someone's face could show such a rainbow of emotions. As I invited Logan in, Ben's mom suddenly came over and took my hand. Susan, is this your house? Why not invite us in now that we've bumped into you by chance? Ben's face shifted a bit. Mom, Susan just got back. Let's not bother her. Oh, it's no bother at all. Ben's mom looked pointedly at Logan. You and Susan were each other's first loves. Almost got married. That's different from strangers, isn't it, Susan? Bit late to realize we were more than just any connection, huh? Too bad for you. I smiled, nodding. You're absolutely right, Auntie. With the bond Ben and I shared, I should definitely offer you a cup of tea. Butler, please make 2 cups of tea for our guests. Mr. Logan and I will go with my usual. The living room vibe was a bit tense until Ben took a sip of the tea. His eyes lit up. This tea is amazing. Susan, it's even better than my former boss's tea. I smiled, holding up a 3 and then a 10. Just SOSO, only worth this much. Ben blurted out in surprise. 300,000. His mom was stunned. Oh my god. Susan, is your family really that wealthy? Just then, the butler brought over 2 more cups of a different tea, setting one in front of me and one in front of Logan. Logan picked up his cup and took a sip, smiling immediately. Definitely good tea. Ben and his mom exchanged confused looks. Logan smirked. More than 10 million per kilo, I'd say. Ben's mom's face turned green. I purposely shot Logan a disapproving look. Don't mention stuff like that. My dad always taught me not to flaunt wealth. Typically, I never speak of my rich background, but I've been lucky to meet kind people, like my ex over there, who values integrity over wealth. So I've never been exploited. Highlighted Ben's virtues, and he and his mom instantly relaxed into smiles. I sighed. Hey, I used to be so naive, even trying to win over my ex with money. Told him my family's worth billions and got rejected right away. From him, I learned a valuable lesson. True love can't be measured by money. Their smiles froze. I looked sincerely at Ben's mom. Did you know, Auntie, I planned to gift this villa to Ben for his birthday. It's a pity, but rest assured, I have principles. Break up means break up. I won't interfere with his new relationship. Ben's mom stood up quickly, surveying the villa's first floor with a pained look. Ben soon followed suit. His mom started to say something, but Ben pulled her back. Susan, I promise I'll make this up to you. I'll give you an explanation. And with that, Ben and his mom ambled off, with Ben pulling his mom along. When I got to the villa entrance, I vaguely heard him say something like, Mom, don't get involved in this. I know Susan. I'll win her back. Win her back. That word made me feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't help but shiver. Right then, Logan next to me said, Susan, Ben's not right for you. I paused, then laughed and said, You got it wrong. Of course, I know a jerk like him isn't my match. I was blind before, but I'm wide awake now. Then, I called the maid over and told her to toss out Ben and his mom's used slippers and teacups. Even the places they sat or stepped on had to be disinfected with alcohol. Logan chuckled at this. I instinctively asked why he was laughing. He pointed to his face, worried someone might kiss and run, leaving me without responsibility, he joked. My face turned as red as a tomato, and I stuttered out a reply. Sorry, that was a misunderstanding. I thought you were Betty's cousin. Logan raised an eyebrow. So, if it was someone else, you'd kiss them too? No way. I stood up quickly to explain. It's just 'cause you're so handsome that I acted without thinking. Let me tell you, Logan, I'm not that kind of person. After saying that, I realized it sounded all wrong. Even the butler and maid in the room were laughing discreetly. I felt about ready to explode from embarrassment. Logan laughed too. Susan, sorry to bother you today. Let's find a time, and I'll take you out for dinner, he said before he left. Behind him, the butler commented, Miss, Logan seems like a good guy. I shrugged. He's all right. Just a billion times better than Ben. After coming back in, I took a shower and hit the sack. I woke up past 2 in the morning, grabbed a pillow for my back, and started scrolling through my phone. Ben had sent me over 100 messages. I skimmed through a few. Susan, I'm the blind one. I was tricked. I really thought my mom was terminally ill. That's why I compromised and got together with Rose. Turns out, she's nothing but a fraud. Susan, she's not even worthy to hold a candle to you. I swear I'll never do such a thing again. Can you forgive me? Talk about nerve. He finds out I live in a villa and then comes crawling back begging for forgiveness. How did I not see through his act before? I sent back a mocking emoji. Ben called immediately with a new number. As soon as I picked up, I heard Ben's eager voice. Susan, you're finally responding. Have you forgiven me? Forgive him. Not in this lifetime. Cheating is unforgivable. Then Ben was like, Susan, I just knew you'd forgive me. We have so many beautiful memories, and I'll never forget them. Listening to Ben wax nostalgic about our past just made me feel queasy. I put my phone on silent and laid it by my pillow, then grabbed my tablet to binge-watch some dramas. I accidentally clicked on an angsty love story short series, only 10 episodes. It was cheesy, but had me crying my eyes out. I wiped my tears and blew my nose, then checked my phone. Holy cow, Ben was still on the line. I turned the volume back on. Ben was acting all sentimental again. All right, Susan, stop crying. I know you still love me. Everything that happened was my fault, okay? I swear I'll treat you twice as well in the future. Yeah, twice as good to my money more like. I didn't want to waste any more words on him, so I hung up with a click. You used to look down on me. Now, you can't even measure up. The following days, Ben stopped bugging me. I thought he'd finally gone away for good. Turns out, on my 24th birthday, just as I was about to drive my Maybach to pick up Betty for some fun, I saw Ben and his mom. One had a big teddy bear and the other carried a cake. Worth noting, Ben's dark circles looked like they belonged on a panda. Seeing me, they perked up right away. Susan, happy birthday. Susan, we've always spent your birthday with you. Let's do it together this year too. I gave Ben a half smile and said, no, it was never you two, just you. Ben's mom never liked me, so on my birthdays, she played it deaf and dumb, never even sent a message. And every time Ben and I were dining out, she'd always find some excuse to call him back before we finished. The fact that I stayed chaste with Ben for 3 years owes a lot to his mom. Ben's mom had an awkward look. Susan, that was just a misunderstanding. I wasn't well back then. I just kept staring at her with a smile till she felt uncomfortable. She rubbed her hands and pointed at the cake. Susan, this cake. I casually tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Sorry, I only eat black swan cakes. Ben pulled his mom aside. Then how about this bear? I raised an eyebrow, but before I said anything, Ben threw it in the trash. Sorry, Susan, such a plain bear doesn't fit you. He wanted to say more, but just then, a tall figure stepped out of a neighboring Maybach. Logan looked a bit road-weary, his handsome face sporting some stubble that made him oddly sexy. He walked straight to me, blatantly ignoring Ben and his mom, and he tapped on the car window, raising an eyebrow casually. Susan, to only invite Betty on your birthday, isn't that kind of snubbing your boyfriend? He said. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Boyfriend? When did that happen? Wasn't this all just an act? Ben's expression changed slightly, but he kept silent while his mom jumped in. Don't spout nonsense. Susan's Ben's girlfriend. What's she to you? Even if you're rich, you can't just talk out of turn. Logan looked at Ben with a knowing smirk. If you want to know whether Susan and I have something, why don't you ask your son? Ben pressed his lips tightly together. I knew him. This gesture showed he was tense. He watched me with puppy eyes and tried to sweet-talk me. Susan, I was wrong before. I apologize. I swear I'll be twice as good to you in the future. So can we stop this fuss? What happened with you and him? Let's just move on and go back to how things were, okay? I used to be a sucker for this, but now, I wanted to slap him, especially using the words move on so aptly. Crafted so well he drained all the anger and hatred I had for him. In the past, I was blind. Not only did this man not deserve my love, but he didn't even deserve my hatred. I smiled, looking at Logan. Honey, I'm sorry for ignoring you. How can I make it up to you? And just like that, I followed Logan back to his place. It looked just like my villa, but with a grey and white, minimalist, modern design. Though there were no maids, it was incredibly clean. I sat on the couch, and he brought me a cup of hot water. I asked him, do you hire someone to clean? No. Logan chuckled. I'm kind of a neat freak. I don't like strangers in my space, so I clean it myself. So I guess I'm not a stranger, huh? I blushed a bit. Thinking about him cleaning his place made me picture him in an apron, scrubbing the floor. And my face got even redder. I took a big gulp from my water cup. Someone placed a hand on my forehead. Feeling hot, I quickly scooted to the side a bit. Oh man, I feel even hotter now. Logan chuckled softly. Sorry, I've been on a business trip. Just got back today. It's not that I didn't want to text you, I just never know what to say. Every time, I just stare at your profile picture for ages. Logan rubbed his forehead and sighed. Susan, I really can't deal with you. I couldn't figure out what made Logan feel like he couldn't deal with me, but I did know my heart started pounding like crazy. He looked at me with a smile again. In the end, the reason I'm so helpless is because I want to make this official. Susan, I rushed back today, just to ask you, will you let me be your real boyfriend? My face felt like it was burning. What was up with this guy? He wasn't doing anything over the top, yet I was so moved. But he wasn't backing down on this. He took a step forward and looked down at me. Susan, give me an answer. Me. What other answer could I have? Of course. I nodded yes right away. Logan raised his hand and hugged me. I could hear his strong heartbeat, matching mine in speed. Susan, I'm really happy. After a while, Logan let go. Wait for me. I'm going to shower and change. Then we can celebrate your birthday. Okay. Not knowing what to say, I just nodded like a little hamster. Soon I heard the water upstairs. I quickly sent a message to Betty. Take your time. I got held up. Probably about 30 minutes. Betty asked what was holding me up. I sent a shy emoji. Boyfriend. Not Ben, right? Relax. It's the guy by the Maybach. Alright, take your time. Half an hour might not be enough. Logan was definitely the kind of guy who took your breath away, at first glance, and even more so after a second and third look. After Betty got in his car, she was stunned. She kept nudging me, giving me looks. So handsome, like a movie star. Betty wasn't exaggerating. I felt a little proud. Of course, my taste is impeccable. Betty rolled her eyes, clearly hinting at Ben. She wanted to hear the story of me and Logan. With half an hour of driving, I told her as if it were a story. In the end, she was more excited than I was. Susan, I'm the matchmaker for you and Logan. Transfer me some gratitude money. Before I could transfer anything, Logan passed back a gift box stuffed with cash from the front seat, already prepared. Betty gave him a thumbs up. Smart. Logan planned my birthday perfectly. We got home at exactly 9:30. Betty eagerly called me. She praised Logan up and down like an essay. She finally concluded. Susan, I always thought Ben didn't deserve you, but you were obsessed with him. Now, you found a good man. Susan, hold on to this one. Hearing Ben's name, I felt nothing. No disgust, no sadness, just sweetness when I thought of Logan. The next morning, Ben called me. I hesitated, but then answered. Susan, did you have a good time yesterday? Ben sounded particularly worn out, like he was on the brink of falling apart. Yeah, I was happy. Betty and Logan were with me, and it went great. That's good. Susan, is there really no hope for us? Yeah, I said firmly. Ben, let's stop contacting each other. Whether you want Rose or not, it's none of my business. Ben's voice sounded choked. Susan, we loved each other so much. How did it end like this? I rolled my eyes. Ben continued. Susan, I've been doing really badly lately. I can't eat or sleep well. My job's a mess. My boss fired me. Sounded rough. I laughed. A jerk gets what's coming. After a pause, Ben asked, Susan, can I borrow some money? My mom fainted before she even got home yesterday. I took her to the hospital, and she's got late-stage lung cancer. I laughed harder. Ben, it came true. Your mom really got a fatal disease. Congrats. I hung up and texted Ben never to contact me again, before blocking him. If Ben hadn't asked for money, I might have pitied him, but asking for money right off the bat. Sorry, I'm not a fool. I have no obligation or responsibility to help your mom. I opened the curtains, took a deep breath of fresh air and stretched. Morning. Logan's voice came from across. I froze, saw him in navy loungewear smiling at me from the balcony. His eyes felt like they were full of warmth. I touched my messy hair and quickly ducked away. Logan called me on the phone. Come over for breakfast. I made ramen. Of course, I went. Eating his ramen, sitting in his place. I didn't dare look directly at him. After finishing, Logan took the bowls to the sink. Wearing a plaid apron, moving skillfully, he looked so handsome from the back. Once he was done, I turned to his unopened TV in a hurry, looking for the remote. Logan, I wanna watch TV. Sure, what do you want to watch? Anything. He really picked anything. A movie was on, and the leads were making out passionately. I felt awkward. He quickly changed the channel. It got even more awkward. Now the leads were getting intimate in bed. Feeling even more awkward and a little warm, I reached for the remote, only to grab Logan's hand. He looked at me just as I looked at him. Logan tossed aside the remote and leaned in, cupping my face. Before he could lean down, I quickly blocked his mouth. Did I come off too eager? After dating Logan, I realized I never really dated before. I just felt lonely. He's a perfect boyfriend, cleaning, cooking, even when traveling. he always keeps me updated. He'd answer my calls even in meetings. By our 3rd month, he was already planning our future home. Took me to see new houses, decided on a style, bought it outright, and put my name on it. If it wasn't for me thinking about him intentionally, I'd have forgotten about Ben. But I didn't expect to see him again. Clean clothes, visibly thinner. He knocked on my car window with a smile. Now Ben seemed creepy, and I didn't dare open the door. He wasn't in a rush, patiently persuading me. His eyes looked eerie, like someone possessed. Susan, open the door. I have something to discuss. I was even more hesitant. I reached to roll up the window that was down a third. Just as the window moved, his hand shot in, yanking my hair hard. Susan, you won't open the door for me. You think you're something just because you have money, looking down on me and my mom. Ben's voice was terrifying, like he'd lost it. I was scared, scrambling to pry his hand off. He tightened his grip. If it wasn't for you, would I have been fired from the company? You know who the president of the L Group is, right? It's Logan. He was jealous that I was your ex-boyfriend, so he fired me. And if it weren't for you making my mom angry, would she have gotten a terminal illness? If you had loaned us the money, would she have been so desperate as to jump off a building? Susan, you owe my mom a life. Ben, you're really sick. I don't know where I found a small knife, but I quickly slashed his hand with it. He let go in pain. I rolled up the car window just in time. Ben turned and started banging his head against my car window until he was bleeding. I tried to drive off, but he blocked my way. He stepped back a few paces and then knelt right there in front of my car. He kept bowing his head to the ground, murmuring something. I couldn't hear it clearly until I rolled down the window. Susan, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I promise I'll never cheat again. Can't we just go back to how it was before? I called the police and the hospital one after the other. Logan arrived just as Ben was being taken away in the police car. He hugged me tightly, his whole body shaking. His voice was almost incoherent. Susan, you're okay. Thank God you're okay. I snuggled up in Logan's arms, feeling so soft inside. Logan, you're not getting any younger. Let's get married. He paused, then smiled helplessly. Susan, can't I be the one to propose? Are you going to let my planned proposal go to waste? Fine, I'll pretend I didn't say anything. Even though I wasn't hurt, Logan insisted on taking me to the hospital for a checkup. On our way back, we got a call from the police. They said the hospital's assessment showed Ben had schizophrenia, and that he'd be sent to a mental institution for mandatory treatment. Logan took the phone and made the decision for me. Okay, I'll cover all his treatment costs for life. Looks like he's planning to keep Ben there forever. Logan hung up and looked at me. Sorry for making the decision without you, but Ben is a risk I can't afford. I gave Logan a kiss. I really like how you handled it. So, about the proposal, when's it happening? Logan smiled indulgently. That's a secret. Logan's epilogue. Logan, recently the L Group stock has plummeted. It's all over major media headlines. What should we do? Logan rubbed his temples. What else can we do? I'll just lay it all out for them. Guess the biggest secret couldn't stay hidden. Actually, the day Susan mistook Logan for Betty's cousin wasn't their first meeting. Susan probably doesn't even remember who Logan is. Who am I? I was once Harry, living in the same compound as Susan's grandma. When I was 7, I was the king among the kids there. And Susan wasn't even 6 months old. She couldn't even walk. But Susan had an eye for things. From her stroller, her big round eyes just stared at me. Yeah, she knew I was good looking. Fine, I'll graciously give her a hug. But as soon as I did, her diaper leaked, and I ended up with a hand covered in poop. That period of time, steamed pumpkin became my eternal nightmare. Just seeing it made me feel queasy. I vowed to stay away from Susan, that little troublemaker. But after avoiding her for just 3 days, I gave up on that idea. She always looked at me with those big eyes, as if craving my attention. I'm 7. I won't fuss with a 6-month-old kid. Fine, I'll hug her, tease her, pinch her. But then I realized Susan was getting a bit too cheeky. I'd hug her, she'd reach for another kid. I'd tease her, she'd smile at another kid. I'd pinch her, and if she wasn't happy, she'd start crying her head off. HMPH, am I not handsome enough? I was annoyed, but not worried. I could handle all the kids in the compound. Surely I could handle her. The more you play with kids, the more Susan would stick to me. I quickly became Susan's personal bodyguard. Except for studying and sleeping, wherever Susan was, there I'd be. The old folks in the compound teased me. Harry, you're learning to keep an eye on your wife at such a young age. Of course, I knew what the word wife meant. I looked at Susan's round little face. I thought it'd be nice to take care of her until she could cook for me. So, I nodded earnestly. Yep, gotta watch over my own wife. 2 months later, I lost my wife. Susan went home with her mom, and my wife was gone. The day she left, I sat alone on the steps in the compound, daydreaming. My friends who hung out with me came to ask, "Harry, what's wrong?" I shook my head. "You wouldn't understand my pain. After all, not everyone has a treasure like a wife." Without Susan, I became much more introspective. Grown-ups often praised me for being steady and sensible, but little did they know, I was forced to mature. Luckily, Susan's family returned to the compound for the new year. Susan had grown taller, learning to walk, wearing a little padded jacket. Her chubby cheeks looked just like cotton candy, so adorable. But she tottered around with the other compound kids, and then pounced on a 2-year-old little brother. Ridiculous. I picked her up with a stern face. She got so scared, she cried her eyes out. I quickly tried comforting her. "Susan, it's Harry. Don't you remember me?" Her little face scrunched up. My mom, standing nearby, laughed. "Harry, you scared Susan. Give her a smile." "Okay, fine," I grinned. And Susan immediately cried even louder. Despite being small, she was strong, crying and struggling as I held her. Susan's mom quickly took her from my arms. Watching my empty hands, I felt a bit annoyed. But what could I do? There's nothing else to do but forgive her. For the next 5 years, Susan's family visited the compound for holidays. When she was 5, I was almost 12, long past the age to be playing around with young kids. But sometimes I couldn't resist. 5-year-old Susan loved playing games. A group of kids in the compound would assign roles. I'd be under the sycamore tree, reading a book, unfazed. Until Susan grabbed a little brother and said, "You're the dad. I'm the mom, and here's our baby." Then I couldn't stay put. I set the book aside and walked over to Susan, towering over her. "What about me?" she said in her childish voice. "You can be the grandpa." I traded a candy to convince the little brother to be my grandpa, and played as dad among the kids with great flair. That night, the compound was lit up with fireworks, making Susan's little face extraordinarily bright. I secretly made a wish. "Next time, when Susan comes to the compound, I want to play dad again. And tell her, we don't need a grandpa. Another son would be fine." Dreams broke fast. My mom, Kate, was diagnosed with lung cancer, and it was already at an advanced stage. The day she told me, she looked at me for a long time with complex emotions, and said, "If your grandparents were still here, I'd never let your dad see you." After that, I made a call to bring that man over. That's when I found out I actually had a dad. I didn't know what had happened between my mom and dad. Neither had ever married, yet they never officially became a couple. But I could tell they loved each other. When my dad rushed into the hospital room that day, he stood by the door staring at my mom. He didn't even say a word before tears started flowing. "Kate, did I finally wait long enough for you or not?" Though my mom worked with the doctors for treatment and smiled often, you couldn't deny she was getting worse every day. In less than 3 months, she passed away. She left me 3 things. First, the house in the big courtyard. Second, a piece of advice. "Harry, I was too stubborn back then, and I missed out on so much. I've realized now, life is short, and happiness is what's truly important. So, Harry, if you find someone you love, make sure you marry them." Third, a brand new name, Logan. On the day of my mom's funeral, I looked at my dad and realized he seemed to have aged 20 years overnight, with so much gray hair. I recalled my mom's words and Susan's face popped up in my mind. But after that, I never bumped into Susan at the courtyard. First, her grandparents moved out, and second, my chances to visit the courtyard were few and far between. Because Logan wasn't just a new name. Grandma's illness had already put the family in a fragile state. My arrival stirred things up even more. My dad, being the eldest, was supposed to inherit the largest share of the family business, but he remained single and showed no interest in marriage. So the relatives ruled him out as a competitor since they all had sons. But once my dad left and returned with a son, a good-looking 12-year-old who seemed like a young prodigy, that made them nervous. They quickly teamed up to push my dad out. I was caught in the middle. The only option was to better myself. I had no choice. Under immense pressure, I was forced to grow up fast. I didn't crave victory. I just refused to lose. In the beginning, I thought of Susan often. Her round face was a source of comfort, but gradually, she appeared less in my thoughts. Her image blurred. By the time I was an adult, I just remembered a girl named Susan who had wanted to marry me as a kid. By 25, I'd spent 13 years establishing myself in the family. I outmaneuvered all adversaries, then began transforming the family business. Formed L Group. Within a year, L Group went public, and less than a year later, it was one of the world's top 20 public companies. At 27, people started pushing the idea of settling down. When it came to this topic, the first person I thought of was Susan. Many fell in love with me, but the only one who stuck in my memory was her. I used my network to find Susan's current address, and got her ID photo. I had never seen such a vibrant passport photo. Her eyes sparkled like the sun, bright enough to light up my own face with a smile. A girl with good taste like that deserved to be beautiful. Not pursuing her as my wife would be such a waste. But Susan's family wasn't much different from mine. She was adorable and an only child, likely cherished and spoiled. How would I win her over? I looked online. Mixed reviews. Not reliable. So, I signed up for a premium relationship course. They say, to keep a wife, you've got to know how to cook first. 6 months into it, I mastered the essence of 8 cuisines. When I become a husband, I could guarantee a different cuisine every day of the week. Happy with my achievement, I planned to meet Susan again. I networked my way in, using her mom as a contact. She liked me and agreed to have Susan meet me for a date. I was confident things would go smoothly, maybe even leading to marriage. But before I even met her, Susan rang me up. Her voice was soft and sweet. Started with, Mr. I was stunned. She used to sweetly call me brother. But in just 20 years, she changed. More shocking was her second line. Sorry, Mr. I have a boyfriend. Didn't she always want to marry me? At that moment, I felt really down. In business, I never went unprepared. Yet with Susan, I missed that sometimes. Fate plays a bigger role than preparation. That day, I stared at Susan's picture a long time and finally chose to delete it. I told myself, Logan, you're a grown man now. You gotta learn to let go of some things. I thought I had let go, refusing all blind dates and proposed matches, because I actually enjoyed my single life. Until after leaving the courtyard, I truly reunited with Susan. In a cafe, Susan smiled sweetly at me. Hi, Logan. I looked up and could clearly see the surprise in her eyes. Then she playfully tapped her forehead. Logan, Betty probably filled you in, right? Huh. Susan's smile grew sweeter, with a hint of mischief. Logan, being my family's son-in-law isn't hard. You just need to stand by me and look handsome. I'll provide all the fancy stuff. Deal? While I was still a bit confused, the words son-in-law were clear. Susan, you've got the wrong guy. I was mildly excited, but I kept calm. She was like a rabbit jumping into my arms on her own. I told myself again, Logan, you're a mature man now. If you can't let go of something, don't. Figure out what Susan's up to, and we'll go from there. I nodded slowly. Sounds good. Soon, I discovered why Susan needed someone to act as her partner. Seems her boyfriend of 3 years left her, because the guy found better prospects by marrying rich. Susan, wanting revenge, decided to act. I felt mixed emotions knowing this. A part of me cheered, the jerk deserved it, but I also worried Susan still had feelings for him. Anyway, what I knew was true. It felt good being in the role of son-in-law. Susan took me shopping. Susan dressed me. Susan even hailed a cab to my office. In an afternoon meeting, thinking about Susan brought a smile to my face, enough to startle department managers into stumbling over their words. Oh, I had to get a grip on myself. I needed serious self-reflection. I called the department managers in one by one, gave them a half-month vacation, and had my assistant book flights for them to go on vacation with their families. Unexpectedly, the managers were crying their eyes out in front of me. Logan, take care of yourself, they said. Once they left, I asked my assistant what was going on. The assistant said, people have feelings. They've followed you for so many years, and suddenly quitting is hard for them. Quitting? Go, stop them with HR. A few days later, I bumped into Susan again. I was just about to head out in my Maybach when I saw her and was quite surprised. Besides being surprised, I was a bit nervous. I was worried I'd lose my chance to marry into her family. But then, Susan mistook me for Rose's chauffeur. Thinking of my family's chauffeur's daughter, I was lost in thought. No way, such a coincidence. Susan's ex-boyfriend might end up with more than a red face. Then, Susan, sparing no words, offered me 10 grand to be her driver. To keep her from suspecting anything, I took the cash. Just 10 grand. Once we get married, my assets will be hers anyway. I felt like I was under a spell called Susan. I usually don't spend much time on my phone, but after that, I found myself checking my phone more and more often. Each time, I stared at her profile pic for a good while, hoping she'd message me. But nothing came. Even within the company, rumors started to spread. Everyone whispered, the boss is in love. In love, not a bad term. I immediately called the finance department, told them to bump up company bonuses by 10% this month. I waited and finally got a call from Susan. She wanted me to back her up. Her loser ex was planning to propose to Rose at the mall. I put on a custom suit Susan bought, and took her to the mall right on time. Honestly, that loser and Rose are a perfect match. The way he acts all lovey-dovey makes me want to wish them a long, happy life together. Finally, Susan took me over and sat in the center spot. The loser came over, pretending to care, but his act let Susan hook her arm in mine, calling me her boyfriend. The loser told Susan to stop fooling around. His indulgent look made me want to punch him, but I held back. Today was Susan's show. She called the manager and told the loser to scram. His expression was priceless. He seemed like he wanted to argue, but Rose stopped him. I knew why, because Rose saw me. Not sure what Rose said, but the loser quickly gave up arguing. As he left, he still had to be a jerk. Susan, to get back at me, is it worth it to compromise yourself like this? I was about to puke, but Susan pulled on my tie and bent down. A wave of her scent hit me. Not like any perfume, but it made my heart race. Then, she kissed my cheek. That popping sounded just perfect. I thought, well, she kissed me, so maybe we can take our relationship further. But the next day she went abroad, flooding her social media with scenic and culinary posts. I bet she forgot she even had a boyfriend. I was a bit mad, but what could I do? Of course, I forgave her with tears. At first, I thought it would be best for Susan to discover Rose's fake wealthy act on her own. The thrill in that moment, only she could feel it. But I didn't expect Rose's family to be so audacious. A business trip got postponed, so I witnessed Rose's grand show. The driver, usually humble in front of me, strolled into my house like he owned the place, plopping onto the sofa. Rose followed, sitting on the other side. Ben, Auntie, it's not your first time here. Make yourselves comfortable. I was in the study, watching the scene on surveillance, feeling my blood boil. The show went on. The driver patted his belly. Ben, once you and Rose marry, this house will be yours. The jerk's mom was thrilled. Then whose name will be on the deed? Of course, Ben and Rose's. Yes, yes. Having Ben marry into your family is our greatest fortune. Listening to her endless praise, I couldn't take it anymore. I changed into fresh clothes and slowly went downstairs. I watched as Rose and the driver's faces twisted in fear when they saw me. I poured them a warm cup of water, smiled, and told them to leave. They left the villa. I cleaned up the place, disinfected it thoroughly, and stepped outside. Before I could get in the car, Rose knelt before me. She was shouting, "Susan's back." Well, the cat's out of the bag on my wealth. I reminded myself, Logan, don't panic. The richer you are, the more perfect you are for Susan. Soon, I understood what it meant to miss someone. After visiting Susan's place, I went on a business trip. In a foreign land, I thought of Susan day and night, kept opening our chat, sending messages like, "Have you eaten? Did you sleep well? What did you eat today?" But I always typed them out and then deleted. I felt like I was going mad. Fueled by determination, I finished the project as fast as I could, flying back, just in time for Susan's birthday. The moment I reached my doorstep, I saw that jerk and his mom pestering Susan again. Susan's future boyfriend had enough of this nonsense. I got out, walked to Susan's car, and knocked on the window. "Susan, it's your birthday, and you only invited Betty. Have you considered you're neglecting your boyfriend?" Her eyes widened in shock. I knew she was as smitten with me as I was with her. Sure enough, she soon smiled at me. "Honey, it was wrong to neglect you. How should I make it up to you?" Susan opened the car door and followed me inside. As I shut the door, a warm breeze seemed to fill the once cooling house. Caught up in the moment, I thought, this house finally has a lady of the house. As for the proposal, I planned something simple. I wanted to take Susan back to the big house, and tell her we've known each other for years. Sometimes, you can't deny that some things are just meant to be. Like her, even though we got separated for a while, in the end, she was always destined to be my wife.